plunging into something interesting, a stack of sources one of you sent over.
That's right.
We're looking at the recent chat logs from the Perplexity Fellowship community, say, over the last week or so.
Yeah, think of it like we've got a direct line, almost, into the live, unfiltered conversations. You know, a group of people really pushing the boundaries of AI.
Exactly. Seeing what they're actually using, the problems they hit, where they reckon things are going. So our mission here is basically to pull out the key insights, the interesting bits about the AI tools they're discussing, the platform's development stuff, how they're applying it.
And also just the vibe of the community itself, right? How they interact. It's all in these chats.
It really is. It's like a shortcut to the pulse of people living and breathing this stuff day to day.
And just a quick note before we jump in for you, the listener. There's also a mind map we've put together. It's a separate video resource.
Oh, right. Good point.
Yeah, it visually lays out everything we're about to discuss. Might be really helpful, you know, to see how all these different threads connect.
Definitely worth checking out if you're a visual person. Okay, so let's get into this. It's a lot of material, obviously, being chat logs.
A whirlwind, yeah.
But some clear themes definitely popped out. And maybe the biggest one was just people trying to navigate the sheer number of AI tools out there. It's complex. It's changing fast.
Absolutely. And that's the gold in these logs, isn't it? People sharing their real hands-on experiences. They're trying stuff. Things break. They report back. We saw quite a bit on tools like Manos and Genspark, for example.
Right. And the feedback was super specific. Like someone said Manos is, well, undeniably pricey.
The best there is for some things, I think was the quote.
Yeah.
But yeah, expensive.
Exactly. Like for video generation. But that cost is a huge hurdle. They mentioned specific costs like, what, $8 to $12 for a video?
Yeah, something like that. And the new daily credits, 300 of them, they help a bit.
But maybe not enough for the really big tasks. They highlighted that if you could do a full video just with those credits, that'd be like an amazing deal. A steal, almost.
It put the cost thing front and center, doesn't it? Even for the top-tier tools.
Totally. And then contrasting that, you had Genspark. More mixed feelings there, it seems.
Right. This super agent in particular, someone was pretty disappointed with it, didn't quite meet their expectations.
But other parts of Genspark were seen more positively.
Yeah. The agents for specific things like sheets or slides, those got better feedback. Effective and, crucially, cheaper than the big guns like Manus.
So that suggests a strategy, maybe? Use the specialized, cheaper agents for specific tasks instead of one super agent that tries to do everything.
Could be. It makes sense. And it led to this bigger question in the chat, too.
Which was?
Well, can the big general models, you know, Perplexity itself, Perplexity Labs, ChatGPT, can they actually handle most of what people are using these niche tools for?
Ah, right. When do you really need the expensive, specialized thing versus just a good general model?
Exactly. It's that cost-benefit calculation happening live right there in the chat.
We also saw some chatter about Claude.
One person consistently preferred Claude's output for whatever they were doing, like the style, the quality.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
Usually. Others mentioned Claude can be temperamental. File uploads failing sometimes was the specific example.
So even when you like a model, reliability can still be a bit of a headache.
Seems so. And speaking of headaches, the Lovable situation over that free weekend.
Oh yeah, that sounded chaotic. They offered it free, which is great marketing, but...
But it hammered their systems. The descriptions were pretty colorful, sluggish crawling.
Someone even said it felt like a DDoS kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Blank screens for some users.
It just shows how hard scaling these things is, right? Especially when demand spikes unexpectedly. Free access isn't always free for the provider.
True. But despite the performance mess, people were still excited about Lovable.
Yeah, definitely. There was buzz about a Lovable hackathon. And a key feature that people really liked that came up a few times.
What was that?
You can choose the LLM underneath. It's not a black box like some other platforms.
Ah, more control, transparency, people like that.
Exactly. Gives users more say. And there was also something about a 6-week community journey or application thing with Lovable, suggesting deeper ways to get involved.
Interesting. Okay, shifting slightly, we got this amazing detailed look into debugging. Someone shared their whole process for fixing a Gemini API 403 error.
Yeah, that was great. Not just, I had a problem, but step by step, they checked the usual suspect.
Like, is the API key right? Is the project actually enabled in Google Cloud? The standard stuff.
Right, the troubleshooting 101. Right. But the solution they found, the one they shared, that was the really interesting part.
What was it? Not the key or permissions?
Nope. It was the API wrapper itself, the code Google provides to make it easier to use the API.
So the wrapper was the problem.
Apparently. The fix was to bypass it completely and use a direct REST call instead.
Wow. Okay, for folks maybe not deep in APIs, a REST call is like the fundamental way things talk online, right? More basic.
Exactly. It bypasses that potentially buggy helper layer.
Yeah.
And sharing that specific, non-obvious fix, that's pure community gold. Shows sometimes the old ways are the best ways.
And it wasn't just debugging. That same user compared Gemini's image generation Flash 2.5, I think?
Yeah, they used a guide for making branding visuals and compared Gemini directly with ChatGPT.
And Gemini came out looking pretty good on features.
It did. It had things ChatGPT's image tool apparently didn't, like a canvas option, maybe for more editing control.
Mm.
And crucially, version history. Being able to roll back to earlier image versions, that's huge for iteration. A clear win for Gemini in that specific comparison.
Shows how uneven the feature sets still are between these big players.
Totally. And speaking of ChatGPT, it wasn't just a comparison point. People were actively using it.
Right, like for creating a brand identity, a design theme for a content platform.
Yeah.
Using 4.0 or 4.1.
So it's still a go-to creative tool.
Yeah.
But it also came up as, well, sometimes being down or sluggish itself. A reminder that none of these are perfect.
Yeah, fair point. And within the ChatGPT world, people preferred custom GPTs over perplexity spaces sometimes.
Yeah, for specific tasks. Unless the task needed deep web search, then perplexity still had the edge, it seems.
Okay, so people are getting really granular, figuring out the specific strengths, custom GPTs for focused tasks with set instructions, perplexity for digging into the live web or documents.
Exactly. Which brings us nicely to perplexity itself. Labs and spaces were obviously big topics in this community.
Naturally. And labs got a lot of love for being fun, enabling different kinds of applications, not just search.
We saw some really neat examples, like using labs to make Google Docs look better, visually enhance them.
And the key there was without rewriting the content, right?
Precisely. Just improving presentation, formatting, visual appeal, without the AI messing with the actual text. That's a big deal for trust.
Definitely avoids the whole hallucination worry when editing.
And then there was that super detailed example, the responsive AI trivia quiz app built in labs.
Yeah, that sounded impressive. Interesting facts after answers. Self-grading online.
Sharing scores to a group chat. Even a downloadable PDF certificate for high scores.
That's way beyond basic chat. It really shows labs can build proper interactive app-like things. They mentioned calculators, chatbots, dashboards too.
The potential seems quite broad. But even with these cool examples, there was this feeling maybe people aren't using spaces to their full potential.
Someone said they felt like they were only using it to hardly 50% capacity.
Yeah, which suggests there's still a learning curve, right? Or maybe features that aren't obvious. It's not always easy to unlock everything these tools can do.
And that led to a cool idea for a community challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Like set up a scenario. Use spaces to pull info from some links or docs, optimize it somehow, and then do a show and tell.
Ah, nice. Collaborative learning, pushing the tool together.
Exactly. But it wasn't all positive about spaces. There were some concerns, too.
Like what?
One user felt spaces had actually degraded very much recently.
Degraded? How?
They felt it was acting more like a normal search, not really holding on to the context from uploaded files as well as it used to.
That's interesting. And worrying if you rely on that feature. Shows these platforms aren't static, they change.
And not always for the better, apparently. It really highlights why people were sharing specific prompting strategies.
To try and force the behavior they wanted.
Yeah, like sharing custom instructions to make sure the model only used the uploaded files and didn't just wander off searching the web.
So you need to be really explicit. Tell it exactly what data source to use. That prompt layer becomes crucial for control, especially with sensitive docs.
Absolutely. And looking bigger picture at Perplexity's market position, what were the thoughts there?
Well, someone noted they're maybe too weak in marketing compared to OpenAI.
Which is probably fair.
But the feeling was they're catching up, building distribution quickly. And there was mention of them aiming to compete with giants like Bloomberg and LSEG in financial news.
Wow, okay. That's ambitious, going beyond general search.
Definitely signals bigger plans. But on the flip side, the Perplexity API, maybe not quite as robust.
How so?
It felt like a second-tier priority compared to the web version. People mentioned capacity issues, challenges. Suggests the web product is still the main focus. The API might be less mature.
Gotcha. Okay, beyond the big names, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, what other tools were bubbling up?
Julia's got a shout-out specifically for data analysis, working with tables. Suggests it might be better at structured data than the general LLMs.
Okay. Specialized tools again?
Gamma was mentioned too. Someone teased a hidden function for images they were really impressed by. Promised a video tutorial even.
Ha, those little insider tips are great.
Bolt.new also came up, but maybe less successfully.
Yeah. What happened there?
Someone had to abandon a project because Bolt struggled with their real-world database. Multiple tables, complex joins, security stuff. It couldn't quite handle the complexity.
Ouch. A reality check that not all tools are ready for messy, real data.
True. But on the plus side, there was a way to get a free pro plan for Bolt via hackathon, maybe tied into that vibe coding idea.
Ah, vibe coding. Tell me more about that.
Well, Sachin Gupta was mentioned as a big fan, wanting everyone to become one. The sense I got was using AI to quickly generate code from a high-level description, like the vibe of what you need. Faster prototyping.
Okay, makes sense.
Any other tools? Venice.ai came up. It's for making AI clones based on expertise. And the key thing there was pro accounts let you use uncensored system prompts.
More control again. That seems to be a recurring theme.
Definitely. People want to peek under the hood, tweak the core instructions, maybe for fine-tuning open source models too.
We also saw meeting copilots mentioned.
Right. Read.ai and locked-in.ai. Tools that join your calls, transcribe, summarize, find action items, that kind of thing.
Someone asked about Glean too. Isn't that more for enterprise search?
Yeah, usually internal company knowledge. Shows interest in using AI for finding info within organizations, not just the public web.
Descript got a mention for video editing. Super easy.
So AI creeping into creative workflows beyond just generation.
And finally, po.com as a gateway to try new video models.
Exactly. Accessing things like VO3 and Kling. The chat even touched on the costs per generation. VO3 being the priciest, Kling the cheapest. Gives a sense of the pricing tiers emerging in AI video.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of tools. Let's shift now to the more technical side of things. What were they discussing about AI development itself, model behavior, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And one theme just kept coming up, highlighting how important it's becoming. Prompt engineering.
It's more than just asking a question, isn't it?
Oh, way more. The consensus seems to be that prompts really matter. And it's moving away from just simple prompts or, a few examples.
Towards what?
Towards needing much specific and unique multiple prompts. Really detailed, structured instructions to get what you want.
So the skill is less about the tool itself and more about how you talk to it.
Increasingly, yeah. It feels like good prompting is the key to unlocking what these models can really do, maybe even getting around some of their built-in limits. Yeah. The fact that people are sharing specific prompting frameworks like that one for branding visuals shows how critical this skill set is now.
Makes sense. What about understanding how these models actually, think or behave?
That came up too, some really interesting observations. Someone shared an article point that basically if the task gets too complex, AI abandons reasoning.
Abandons reasoning. What does that mean? It just gives up.
Sort of. It's not just getting the answer wrong. It's like the model stops trying to work through the steps logically for a complex, multi-part problem.
Huh. Why would it do that? Did they speculate?
Yeah, a couple of ideas were thrown around.
Right.
Maybe there's a compute limit per query. Like, it only gets so much processing power or time, and if it can't solve it within that budget, it just stops or guesses. Or maybe it's related to the benchmarks they're trained on. If the tests don't push complex multi-step reasoning hard enough, the models just don't get good at it. They optimize for simpler stuff.
So we still don't fully get why they fail on hard problems sometimes.
Pretty much. And that led into a really deep discussion about model creep and context creep.
Okay, what are those? Yeah. Sounds ominous.
Yeah. They were described with some pretty vivid analogies, maybe a bit anthropomorphic, like dementia for models or model boredom.
Dementia for models? Seriously?
Oh, yeah, as an analogy, someone shared an article and a preprint that dug into it properly. It distinguished between semantic drift.
Meaning the conversation's topic just sort of wanders off.
Exactly. The focus shifts subtly over time versus factual degradation, where the model actually starts losing track of or getting facts wrong from the original context you gave it.
Okay. And the key insight was?
That this context shift, the semantic drift part especially, isn't a bug. It's a feature working exactly as designed.
Wait, it's supposed to happen?
In a way, yes. As you interact, the AI's internal focus is meant to evolve. The problem is that evolution can take it miles away from where you started or the key documents you provided.
So how do you stop it wandering off?
The practical tip shared was simple. grounding, or doing a sense check.
Which means?
Periodically, just refeed the core topic, the main goal, or the key source document back into the chat, like saying, hey, AI, remember this is what we're focusing on, re-anchoring its attention.
Okay, that makes sense, like a manual reset for its focus.
Exactly. Now, about those analogies like dementia.
Yeah, people push back on that.
There was a necessary caution, yeah. Warning against anthropomorphizing AI too much. Using human labels like boredom or dementia can really mislead us about what's actually happening inside the model.
Right. It's not forgetting like a person does.
Precisely. It inflates our expectations, makes us misinterpret its behavior, but there was also a bit of debate.
About whether it's always wrong to make comparisons.
Kind of. Like, is saying its behavior resembles dementia's effect on conversation truly anthropomorphizing? Or is it a valid comparison based on observable output? Maybe thinking about things like the Turing test.
Ah, the Turing test came up. Still relevant.
Well, its relevance and limits were discussed. The point was made that even way back with Eliza in the 60s, simple pattern matching could fool humans in a basic Turing test.
So passing the test doesn't mean real understanding or prevent weird behavior like context drift?
Not necessarily, no. It's a limited measure. The conversation also got into the real nitty-gritty challenges of just building these things.
Like what?
The sheer amount of data work involved. Someone made the point that 80% of work in a system like this is data engineering.
80%. Wow. Not the sexy model building part then.
Nope. The hard slog of cleaning, prepping, managing massive data sets. That's often the real bottleneck, especially for complex stuff like code generation.
Because real-world data is messy.
Incredibly messy. And this ties into how AI is improving now. It's often not huge new model ideas, but just better data, cleaning it up, adding more, and retraining.
Which sounds expensive and time-consuming.
It is. And that focus on data quality helps explain why vertical AI is getting so much funding right now.
Vertical AI meaning AI focused on specific industries.
Yeah, like AI for healthcare or finance or law. By narrowing the focus, companies can curate much better, more specific data sets for that domain. It's seen as a more achievable way to get reliable results than trying to build one giant AI that knows everything.
Makes sense. Okay, what about the future? Any predictions shared?
Oh yeah, some bold ones. Sachin Gupta predicted systems might go from being like a 3 out of 10 now to an 8 out of 10 in a year.
That's optimistic. A huge jump.
Very. Marianne Khalil agreed things are limited now, but expected big improvements within 1-2 years. And Rohit Singh gave a really detailed list of areas he sees advancing in the next phase of AI. Things like AI boosting mobile development, handling SQL Noble databases better, game development tools, AI getting good enough to crack complex libraries like 3JS.
Meaning understand and generate code for them.
Presumably, yeah. Plus more progress in robotics, drug discovery, finance, marketing, advertising. Basically, improvements across many existing applications.
But then what? Does progress stall?
His speculation was that after that wave of improvement, the next big leap might need something totally new, a new discovery, beyond just scaling up current methods.
Interesting. Did anyone suggest what that might be?
Chandramouli Pandya brought up quantum computing.
Ah, the quantum connection.
Yeah, suggesting quantum breakthroughs are essential too, and maybe the really big jump happens when AI and quantum tech combine, giving AI more raw power and maybe native support for probabilistic stuff, which fits AI well.
Highly speculative, but fascinating.
Definitely future-gazing. And of course, that led to talk about AGI, artificial general intelligence.
The ultimate goal for some. Are we close?
Well, while some people out there speculate about AGI being realized as early as this year or next,
the community was more skeptical.
Yeah, there was disagreement even on what AGI means. Many felt it's currently more of a marketing buzzword than a clear scientific target. The whole Turing test discussion also feeds into that. How would we even know if we achieved it? It's ill-defined.
Right. Okay, so moving from the deep tech and future stuff, let's talk about how people are actually using AI right now, the real-world applications shared in the chat.
Yeah, and there were some really concrete, detailed examples. One big one was AI in HR.
HR, how so?
It kicked off because someone was prepping to lead a session on it. And it sparked a huge discussion, pulling in people with actual HR experience.
What was the main takeaway? Use AI for everything in HR.
Definitely not. The strong consensus was use AI for HR operations and admin tasks. You know, the repetitive stuff, scheduling, data management, onboarding paperwork.
Okay, the grunt work, but not for...
Not for evaluating candidates directly. That was the big warning sign flashed repeatedly.
Why not bias?
Exactly. Huge legal and ethical risks. Employers have anti-discrimination laws to follow, and the point made forcefully was that AI tools can introduce bias, even unintentionally.
And the company is still liable, even if the AI made the biased recommendation.
Yes. The AI doesn't take the legal hit, the employer does. That's critical. It's a massive risk using AI for hiring decisions.
Were there specific examples of this causing problems?
Yeah, they discuss pending lawsuits and complaints, the Workday lawsuit alleging discrimination by algorithms, ACLU complaints against Aon, charges against Intuit HireVue,
What were those about?
allegations of tools being marketed as bias-free but potentially discriminating based on race or disabilities like autism or mental health conditions, especially through automated video interviews.
Wow. So these aren't just theoretical risks.
Not at all. And they mentioned that as of mid-2025, these were still allegations in the ACLU cases. No final decisions yet, but the risk is clear. Regulatory hurdles came up, too.
Like that New York City law, LL 144.
Yeah, the one requiring bias audits for AI hiring tools. The chat mentioned it had major issues in how it was written, making compliance tricky. They even shared a Cornell study on how companies are struggling to comply.
So the law exists, but it's hard to follow.
Seems that way. A legal professional in the chat said they were even teaching law students about these specific challenges, and the conversation benefited hugely from different perspectives.
Like
Someone with deep HR consulting and auditing experience weighing in, reinforcing the risks they see daily, and another person offering the line manager's view, how these tools actually feel on the ground. It was a really rich discussion.
definitely sounds like a critical area to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, away from HR risks, what about people actively building things with AI?
Lots of that, too. We already mentioned perplexity labs for apps like the quiz.
Yeah.
But people envision building calculators, more complex chatbots, dashboards. The potential seems wide open to them.
And there was that robotics example.
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating. Someone with an aerospace and robotics background, notably not IT, was looking for collaborators.
To do what?
To build specialized AI agents trained on different engineering disciplines, electrical, mechanical, civil, MEP,
And the goal.
to orchestrate these agents together for a complex robotics product. Their key point was that just using prompt engineering alone felt too complicated for these kinds of cross-domain problems.
So they're aiming for multi-agent systems where different AIs cooperate?
That's the aspiration, yeah, moving beyond single models.
Very cool. What about creative uses?
Sash Mohapatra shared a great example. He used ChatGPT, specifically 4.0 or 4.1, for a lot of the design theme and branding for his content platform, The Rift.
So AI doing significant creative work, not just fixing typos.
Exactly. He even created and offered a free guide on using AI image generation for building brand visuals. That sparked more comparisons, people trying similar things with Gemini, shows how AI is integrating into the creative process.
And we touched on vibe coding earlier.
Right. Sachin Gupta championing it. Using AI to quickly generate code based on a high-level description, speeding up development. The free Bolt.new plan seemed tied to supporting that kind of rapid prototyping.
What about just general productivity, making daily work easier?
Yep, simple but effective things, like using labs to make Google Docs look better without rewriting text, formatting, presentation boosts.
Nice. Any other examples?
Someone was working on a deep digest or deep summary prompt framework.
Deeper than a normal summary.
Yeah, the idea wasn't just brevity. It was to extract the document structure, key ideas, important quotes, actionable takeaways, and format it all as a usable PDF reference guide.
So using AI to transform information into a more useful format, not just shrink it.
Exactly. Making it more valuable for later. That was suggested as a great use for perplexity labs.
And automating small, annoying tasks.
Huge win there. The example was building a custom GPT just for handling legal Book citations.
Oh God, citations are the worst.
Right, so automating that frees up mental energy for the actual legal writing. It led to a debate. Should we focus on huge AI moonshots? Or is the real value right now in automating these small, tedious pains?
Good question. Both, probably.
Probably. And then there were the meeting copilots we mentioned, Read.ai, Locked-in.ai, integrating AI assistants directly into the workflow without constant prompting.
Making AI more ambient.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And brief mentions of AI in other fields, too.
A blank.
Market research on chatbots for customer support, noting it's a multi-billion-dollar space where perplexity spaces via API could be powerful. Brainstorming help for sales.
Finance, marketing, advertising, already seeing changes.
Yep. And that interesting point about AI robots potentially taking over dangerous cleaning jobs, like on skyscrapers. Reframing job displacement, slightly replacing hazardous work.
A different angle. Anything else?
Just a brief mention of exploring AI in filmmaking, but not much detail there.
Okay, so we've covered tools, tech, applications. Let's wrap up by focusing on the community itself. The interactions, the general mood, what makes this group tick.
Yeah, because that really came through. It's clearly a very active, supportive group. Knowledge sharing is constant.
How so? What are they sharing?
Links galore. Articles on everything, model leaderboards, context drift issues, VC funding trends, those HR legal cases, compliance studies, AI regulations.
So curating relevant info for each other.
Exactly. Plus, guides they've made themselves, like the branding one. Useful videos, reports like one on the future of work, with AI agents, tips about new tools like Lovable or Glean or Boreum.
And it's not just dropping links, right? They're actively helping.
Oh, definitely. Sharing specific prompts for others to try, like that Deep Digest framework or the quiz app prompts. And collaborative troubleshooting is huge.
Like the Gemini API problem.
Perfect example. Someone posts a tricky problem, others jump in with ideas, and they often figure it out together publicly. That's powerful.
Finding collaborators, too, like the robotics project seeking engineers.
Right. Using the community to find specific expertise for ambitious projects, or the HR person offering to run a session, inviting collective input. It's very collaborative.
What's the general vibe like? All serious tech talk.
Not at all. There's loads of enthusiasm, curiosity about new stuff, lots of awesome thank you, amazing, this is super cool when people share resources.
Any humor. Inside jokes.
Oh yeah. Playful stuff like translating ChatGPT, jokes about IRL pizza tokens being the fellowship's real currency, referencing some internal reward system, I guess. Has personality.
But it's not blindly positive, is it? They call out problems.
Very much so. They're frank about limitations. Manus is the most expensive. Disappointed with the super agent. Models not behaving as expected. Tools being crawling or temperamental. Spaces having degraded. Lovable being unusable that weekend.
That honesty is crucial, isn't it? Knowing what doesn't work.
Absolutely. It's just as valuable as the success stories. But despite those frustrations, the underlying mood feels optimistic.
People still believe it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, you see comments like, it'll be solved in the next 2 years, looking forward to 810 in a year, expecting things to improve. And there's healthy debate, too.
Arguing about AGI definitions, anthropomorphizing, the value of benchmarks, job displacement. They're thinking critically.
Definitely. Not just accepting things wholesale. And there was specific community activities mentioned too.
Like about the fellowship program itself?
Right. Talk about it ending soon. But a strong desire for the community to endure beyond that. Discussions about a vision, mission and values event, requests for recordings, submission forms.
So trying to formalize or continue the community structure.
Seems like it. And talk about perplexity rewards, getting mugs for recruiting users.
The subtle flex in video conf calls.
Exactly. General desire for swag. Questions about getting big API credits like $10K, showing the scale of experimentation.
That build and use spirit really shines through.
Totally. Sharing labs projects, prompt frameworks, creative guides, seeking collaborators for big projects like the robotics one. It's very hands-on.
And they welcome newcomers. Keep the community open.
Yeah, encouraging introductions, making people feel part of it.
Yeah.
Practical talks, too, like maybe moving to Discord to keep the conversation going post-fellowship.
Any mention of real-world meetups.
Preferences to things like London Tech Week parties.
Yeah.
Expressing a desire for actual in-person meetups in places like India. So that connection goes beyond just the chat window and excitement for external stuff like that. Lovable Hackathon shows they're plugged into the wider AI world.
Wow. So, yeah, we've really taken a deep dive into these conversations from the Perplexity Fellowship.
We really have. It's fascinating to see them working right at the edge.
We've seen how they're actively experimenting, pushing these tools, hitting walls, but then troubleshooting together, sharing what works and what doesn't.
Both the successes and the frustrations very openly.
And we got insights into the deeper technical discussions, how models are evolving, the sheer hard work of data engineering, those forward-looking predictions, even touching on quantum.
Yeah, the thinking goes pretty deep sometimes.
And importantly, we saw so many practical applications, building apps, automating creative work, but also grappling with really serious ethical and legal issues, like in HR.
It's a real mix of innovation and responsibility.
It definitely paints a picture of a community driven by, curiosity, a real willingness to share knowledge, and this collective push to understand and actually build with AI as it changes week by week.
What really strikes me is just the pace. how
Yeah.
fast things are moving, how user experiences and challenges are surfacing almost daily. It makes you wonder where things will be in another 6 months, let alone a year or two.
Absolutely. A space to keep watching closely. Okay, that's all the time we have for this deep dive.
We really hope you found this look inside the fellowship chats as insightful as we did.
See you on the next deep dive.